Introduction to procure-to-pay cycle. Welcome to the session. In this session, we will get a brief understanding on the structure of the procure-to-pay cycle. Procure-to-pay cycle, which is a very important cycle from the procurement point of view, or in SAP module. So let us go through one by one. Determination of requirements. Determination of requirements means nothing but identifying the requirement of materials. So here in this case, I would like to speak about raw materials. So in a company, if we take as an example, the particular raw material will be identified for its need in the further production process. So first, the raw material will be determined or identified, followed by source determination. Source refers to vendor who supplies the raw materials to the company. So source determination is done in case of establishing a relationship with a new vendor for the first time. So if the vendor already exists, this step doesn't come into picture. So source determination is identifying a new vendor who can supply the raw materials to the company, followed by request for quotation, RFQ. Company identifies few vendors in the market, and it approaches the vendors asking for quotation, so which is professionally known as request for quotation document, followed by quotation entry. Quotation entry means recording or maintaining the quotation details of the vendor in system, nothing else. So after receiving the different quotations from the different vendors, the company saves the data, same data in the system, which is nothing but quotation entry. Vendor evaluation. After collecting the quotations from the different vendors, the company sits and evaluates each and every quotation it has collected from the vendors based on few parameters or criterion. This is vendor evaluation, followed by purchase order processing. So after selecting a vendor, the company establishes a relationship with the vendor by generating a purchase order or expressing the requirement of raw material to the company, and generates a purchase order document and sends it to the vendor, followed by PO monitoring or follow-up. So once sending purchase order to vendor, once after sending PO to vendor, the company just doesn't sit waiting for the vendor response. So in regular intervals, in meantime, it keeps on following up with the vendor regarding the status of delivery of the materials. That is called PO monitoring or follow-up, followed by goods receipt. On one particular day, the vendor dispatches the goods to the company, and the material reaches the company, and the company receives and unloads and receives the materials. So this activity is called goods receipt, followed by invoice verification. After accepting and receiving the materials received from the vendor, subsequently the vendor sends his invoice asking for the payment. So after the vendor sends the invoice, so the invoice will be compared with the reference purchase order, and all the parameters will be considered in checking the invoice. So this step is known as invoice verification. It is also called as LIV, logistic invoice verification, followed by payment, making payment to vendor. So once the vendor invoice is found satisfactory by the department, by the company, especially by the procurement team, so it recommends the FI or accounting team to make payment to the vendor for this particular invoice. And finally, the vendor gets the payment for the supply of the material. So this is how the cycle forms in procure to pay cycle. It starts from determination of requirements and ends with vendor payment. So this is just a brief introduction on the cycle. So in next session, we will elaborately explore every single element which is present in this cycle in detail, so that we can understand more about the process and how the procure to pay cycle works. So see you in the next session. Thank you.